I am honored to be here. This room is captivating. Atlanta, the food scene, Plywood people, this entire thing is blowing my mind. And I just have to say, the shoe game in Atlanta and in this room, I'm a shoe guy, and the amount of quality shoe wear is through the roof. So all of y'all know who you are, but I was talking to somebody today, and how do you say it? Balagan? It was amazing. Blows me away. We're going to geek out on organizational culture. Thank you. This is usually where the blood drains out of your face and you start multitasking and looking for stuff that you can accomplish. But I guarantee you it will be, I think, a productive and helpful talk. But before we dive in, before we kind of get our hands in the culture, I need to begin here. These are my people. I don't start here because I think you should know my people. This is more for me. I'm on this crazy journey of talking and writing a book and writing another book and building a business, and I know myself, I get lost in it. So I start every one of these things with a reminder of who I am and whose I am, and that's them. If this talk completely tanks, I will go home to them and have, for the most part, a welcome reception. I do just quickly want to say, too, the dogs are for sale. It's a 2-for-1 deal, though. So if you want them, just know it's like $5 and you can take them both. All right, let's get busy. I spend my professional life in this weird intersection of 3 disciplines. I spend most of my time working with organizations in the area of strategic vision, organizational culture, and brand strategy. Like a Venn diagram, they kind of overlap. Let's unpack what that means. When we think of strategic vision, it's essentially the future perfect destination. What does it mean to go someplace as an organization that's clear, well-articulated, and measurable? Often organizations have blurry rhetoric. They have no strategic clarity or vision that is actually measurable. So strategic vision is the destination that we want to be at. Brand strategy is the vehicle taking us towards that destination. By the way, these are John Hughes clips. If any of you are a fan of planes, trains, and automobiles, well, you'll recognize the next one. So brand strategy is the vehicle taking us in the direction of the strategic vision. And organizational culture are the people in the brand. They are the people that could drive the brand off the cliff. They are the people getting along, not getting along. They are the people that matter to the brand. And it's interesting because more and more of my career, I would notice this trend. I would go to work with a client in strategic vision, and I would be with the C-suite or the board. I would work with a different client in organizational culture, and it would be the HR team. I would work on brand strategy, and it was largely the marketing team. And more, these groups would kind of silo and segue, and it caused the solutions to never really work as well as they could. We might do this incredible brand repositioning or rebrand, but because it didn't work alongside HR and organizational culture, it actually failed to align from the inside out. So the brand strategy, the rebrand, walked with a limp. We would work with organizational culture and come up with all sorts of fantastic strategies for the culture. But because the C-suite failed to fully embrace it or own it, it never really got root and shaped. So my organization, Historic Agency, we decided that we would double down in 2018 on the intersection of these things. And we made a hard pivot out of the deliverables business, if you will, and moved into more of the consulting around the intersection of brand strategy and vision. It was an incredible decision. It was bloody and hard. That could be its own talk. That should be its own book. But that's not why we're here. Why we're here is to talk more about culture. So in 2019, this shift that we had made needed to be written down. Thought writing a book would help us articulate what we did, why we did it, how we did it. So we set out to write a book, but weren't exactly sure what the idea of the book would be, what the core driving, value prop would be, but had a lot of the tools or thoughts in mind. But I had this interesting experience that really galvanized things for me. I took my older daughter, who you might remember from the earlier picture, the older ice cream bandit up there. By the way, that was a picture in Manhattan. We went to this bougie ice cream place in the West Village. I think each of those were $14. And they hated it. And they were like, we want something else. And I was like, the hell you are. And they literally, this was not a pose. This was their face. And I had to snap a picture. So I took my older daughter, the older ice cream bandit, to her college orientation. And at this orientation, the dean of the school is there talking to this room full of parents. And the dean said to the room of parents, how many of you parents work in fields that relate to your undergraduate degree or post-college training or post-high school training? And I was like, that's an interesting question. I wonder maybe half the room will raise their hand. 5 to 10%. And I thought, that's remarkable. And he asked it again, just to be sure, how many of you work today in fields that are related in some meaningful way to your undergrad or to your primary training outside of high school? 5 to 10%. He then said, listen, 1/3 of your child's graduating class will work in jobs and or fields that currently don't exist. So as they move into this 4-year program, Lord, may it be 4 years. May it be 4 years. As they move into this 4-year program, we're focusing more on who they are and how they work than what they do or when they do it or where they do it. This is before the pandemic. And that's when it clicked. This book needs to be about how we equip organizations to understand the role of their people, because in this fast-moving, unpredictable future where we can barely see the next 3 years, much less 10, it is our people who will be our ultimate competitive advantage. They are the soil in which everything grows. You may have an incredible product, person, brand positioning. It changes faster than ever. What doesn't change is the fact that people help you stay competitive, stay on the edge, and make the difference. And if we fail there, then we will fail everywhere. People drive success. I love this quote from the CEO. Oh, that's the other slide. I love this quote from Lou Gerstner. He was the, by the way, could I get a water? I forgot to bring my water, and the cotton mouth is setting in. This quote, I love this quote. He did the turnaround at IBM. Thank you so much. That guy's amazing, by the way. I just need to say, I don't think I've ever had more loving care. The way he put the mic on my head, it was all so, it was very gentle. Lou Gerstner says, I came to see that in my time at IBM, culture isn't just one aspect of the game, it is the game. In the end, an organization is nothing more than the collective capacity of its people to create value. Amen and hallelujah. I also realized that vision is important, brand strategy is important, right? Our product story, experience, identity, those things are all important, but not as important as culture. Culture is more important. They might have been equal 10 years ago. I would argue that's not the case even then. But today, culture is the tide that rises or lowers everything else in your organization. And if you fail to see it, you will lose your competitive edge. This isn't just about trust falls and Skittles and unicorns and hugs and everybody getting along. This is about serious business advantage. I believe, somebody thinks Drucker said this, who knows? I just kind of completed the sentence. Culture eats strategy for breakfast, brand for lunch, and vision for dinner. And it'll come back for dessert and just kind of nibble on morale. And for years, right, Lencioni, Jim Collins, we've been hearing this, right? This is not new information. People are like, yes, people first. We love people. It's all about people. People need people. And I go into these organizations, and what do you think I see? It's more rhetoric than reality. You know where it's the worst? Nonprofits. Here's why. Because in the nonprofit space, we think our people who are shoulder to shoulder and bleeding for the cause are just naturally aligned to our culture. We don't really have to work on culture or scale culture because they're just there, they're in it. Man, that couldn't be a bigger mistake. That could be its own talk. The amount of springs pulling on the nonprofit employee is amazing. I keep seeing my spit, by the way. I hope that doesn't distract you, but I'm going to try and pull it back a little bit. I think we talk a really big game about development, about people first, about culture. But in reality, it's more rhetoric, and I think that needs to change. My contention is that who our employees are and how they work is as important as what they do and when they do it, and in this current reality, where they do it. If we fail to miss who our people are and how they operate, how they team, how they lead, how they communicate, how they show up. If we miss those things in our culture and just focus on managing the what and the when, we aren't actually developing a culture that will give us the competitive edge that we need. My second contention is that organizational culture is everyone's responsibility and most transformative when decentralized and democratized. What does that mean? It means organizational culture is not just top-down. Top-down's a thing. If your senior leaders don't model the culture, it's painful. And we see that a lot. But culture can be bottom-up. I've seen French Revolution moments in organizations where the culture swelled up and it forced senior leadership to deal with some stuff. Culture is lateral. Teams and departments can do things and make differences, and it can move laterally across an organization. Culture is lateral, it's bottom up, it's top down, but it's everybody's responsibility. It's not just an HR thing. Now, this is typically at the point where, looking at some of the faces, some of you are like on stage with me, you have lights right on you, I can just see you perfectly. This is typically the point where I hear, a 24-year-old, maybe a 31-year-old, maybe even somebody in a more seasoned generation say, yeah, but you don't get it. I don't have any power. I don't have any authority. I can't change the culture. I've tried. My boss is a complete moron. He doesn't listen to me. This is your moment, people. People of despair. This is your moment. Let me tell you why. 3 things are happening that you need to take advantage of. Generational shifts are reshaping leadership paradigms. The old school paradigm that's still in place some places is command and control, right? General Patton. I'm the expert. I tell you what to do. Don't ask questions. I don't care if you're bought in. Just do it. The old school command and control is being replaced with trust and vulnerability. Oh, did we lose Simon Sinek? Was he up there? He was up there? Did you see Patton too? Okay, you got it. Patton, old, Simon Sinek, new, right? Trust, vulnerability, inspiration, leadership. That new school change is taking place in pretty significant ways, whether the organization embraces it or not. But we have a ways to go because 58% of employees trust a complete stranger more than their boss, according to a 2020 Harvard Business Review survey. Number 2, remote and hybrid work has provided an opportunity to rethink everything. How many of you in here are in a season of kind of figuring out remote or hybrid in the organizations that you're a part of? A lot of hands, yeah. 74% of US companies are using or plan to implement a permanent hybrid work model. Number 3, this is your moment because the pace of change and competition has increased the need to recruit and sustain talent. 47% of high-performing employees changed employers in 2020, according to a very broad and wide survey from Total Predictive Index. People that are high performers are exchanging bad cultures for good. It's not a comp game. Comp matters. We'll talk about that in a second. What really matters is leadership and culture. And that's driving the shift more than comp most of the time. So where do we start? What do we do? How do we address this moment? How do we lean into this time? What if you are that low on the food chain person? What if you're a senior leader? What do we do? Well, this is what the book we wrote is meant to address. So we wanted it to be called Culture Ate My Brand. The publisher thought that was far too negative, wouldn't sell books, but we had maintained creative control in the agreement. So we said, no problem. We'll absolutely do Culture Built My Brand. So there you go. In Culture Built My Brand, we talk about a marquee culture. A marquee culture, imagine that with like 1940s kind of like motion picture movement and kind of static and stuff. A marquee culture is essentially the overlap of 6 layers of culture. When these 6 layers are working in tandem, when you are as intentional as possible about these 6 layers, you begin to democratize, decentralize, inspire, and make the health of your soil so much better that it becomes your competitive advantage. The challenge is that this word organizational culture, a lot of people don't know where to begin. Organizational culture is this huge collage of things, and we get so lost in what to do that usually apathy sets in and we do nothing. We just kind of resort to whatever HR tells us to do, or talent management, or whatever you call HR. So we believe these 6 layers, when taken intentionally, will lead to a healthier culture. So what I want to do is walk through these at a very high level. I literally have 4 minutes, so I'm gonna go quick. But my hope is that these inspire you to get the book. Go to culturebuiltmybrand.com, free resources and tools. But figure out which of these might be most helpful for your department, for your organization, for your boutique brand. Heck, we've had people download things for their family. Okay, principles. Actions speak louder than words. I hate to say it, but core values are overrated. Blurry, abstract core values that don't actually shape behavior are overrated. If you have core values and you can't shake them, or you're not in a position to challenge them or rethink them, here's an exercise to walk through. Start with the value. If you were Enron, you could start with integrity. And if you did this exercise, your CEO might not be in prison. So start with the value, whatever it might be. Then define what success looks like. Authenticity. Authenticity. So good. What does it mean? Why is it a value? What does it shape? What does it look like? Then back into the behaviors that lead to the success of this value. Those are principles. Great example, we worked with a healthcare nonprofit. One of their values, build trusted relationships, super sticky, super feely, felt really good. Build trusted relationships, we build partnerships and collaborate across departments, blah, 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 blah. But the beauty is that they have 3 principles tethered to this value, and one of them is this. Every supervisor is required to regularly ask those they supervise the following questions. How can I be a better leader? Is there anything I can do to help you perform at a higher level? This may seem trite, easy, but imagine when this becomes something supervision is now measured by and held accountable to. Now you start to see trusting relationships happen from the inside out. Architecture. Architecture is a layer of culture, the structures that support your people. What are we talking about here? All of this stuff and more. Supervision, coaching, development, hiring, on-ramping, performance reviews, expense reports. Here's the thing with architecture. Most of the time, we failed in our organizations to have all of these systems look like this, right? This is a Frank Lloyd Wright house. It fits into its environment. It's gorgeous, it's beautiful, it's intentional. All of the systems, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, all those things are there, but they're there in a way that's elegant, purposeful, and matches the design of the brand. You don't see ductwork, cables, electrical conduit just kind of dangling around in this picture, right? All those systems are elegant and beautifully integrated in. Why aren't ours? Why do our HR systems and structures often feel like an appendage not an elegant, supportive piece of who we are, unique to our structure and our dynamic. We do things like Brex. Brex is an amazing way to minimize expense report time. We do travel pizza as an organization. If you're gone overnight, your family gets $50 of Uber Eats. We call it travel pizza. Pips for peeps. That's silly, I know. We believe performance improvement plans should be proactive and not a last step determination. Everybody on our staff is in the midst of a performance improvement plan because we all need to improve our performance. We're proactive about it. We give a $1,000 vacation grant to people who demonstrate that they're actually taking a vacation. Rituals, another great layer of culture. Rituals are the experiences that energize and engage. Did you know that NASA has a pumpkin carving contest? It's amazing, and it's not taxpayer funded. And nobody in leadership controls it. Rocket scientists literally got together and said, what if we carve some pumpkins? I bet they would be awesome. And they are awesome. Rituals are the best when they're not top down, right? When you hand somebody a ritual, we're going to do trust falls at 5 o'clock every Thursday. We're going to do a scavenger hunt, and the winner gets a Starbucks card. See, we're building culture. The best rituals are the things that your employees take so seriously, that they drive, that they own, and it reflects the brand in these unique ways that you in leadership can never imagine. At our own company, we do a thing called Music Club. My business partner and I, who own the company, we didn't say, we're going to do Music Club. We had so many people into so many varying styles of music, from smooth jazz to country to acid rock to hair metal. We were like, okay, every week we're going to pick somebody, they're going to present their album, we're going to listen to it and talk about it. 15 minutes, part of a weekly huddle. Completely been a culture booster. Mark and I have no control over it. Great example of a ritual. What could yours be? Lore, the sticky stories that shape culture. Every organization has stories. Many of them are unhelpful. Many of them are helpful. I worked at an organization, got hired. First day on the job, somebody said, the guy that you replaced was hired when the plane landed, and the boss had been talking to him and said, you're better at this than my guy, you're hired, when can you start? So you're just a plane ride away from losing your job. What a great way to start your new C-suite role. Well, I talked to my CEO, naive Ted walked in there thinking, hey, have you heard this? Apparently it's been floating around for like 5 years. And he said, no, I've never heard it, right? Stories like that run rampant through our organizations. Toxic lore that really defeats our culture. Great stories can also build our culture up. We all have great stories, but often we fail to leverage them or tell them in helpful ways. Artifacts, the look and feel of culture, the fifth layer in our book. Artifacts are everything from tchotchkes to things like putting a football field in the middle of your building. Why a football field? Keep, a CRM company, they've got an amazing value that I'm almost forgetting. We win together and we leave everything on the field. So that became such an important value for Keep that they literally put an AstroTurf football field and they do their staff huddles and their meetings on that field. And they regularly remind people that we win together and we leave it all on the field. Disney has these pins that become incredible cast member collector's items to celebrate how long people have been working. They've been doing it for decades. An unbelievable sign of pride in the culture and in the organization. These are great examples of artifacts that can shape culture. Hats are awesome. You can operationalize artifacts. There's so many ways to do artifacts. Last one, vocabulary, words that create worlds. All of the earlier layers may very well result in a whole new lexicon like Starbucks has, like Netflix has. We have travel pizza. We have pips for peeps. I laugh every time I say that. What might you have that could become an intentional lexicon of sticky words that can create new worlds, right? The Abraham Heschel quote, words create worlds. I love Netflix for this reason. Netflix is ruthless about competition, hiring the best, and they pay the best. They've got 4 great sticky terms in their vocabulary: the keeper test, stunning colleagues, sun shining, which is where they drag things into the daylight, and brilliant jerks. They want stunning colleagues, not brilliant jerks. I could go deep on each of these words and how Netflix utilizes them, but it's a great example of a company defining their vocabulary in a way to intentionally shape culture. These 6 layers can shape a powerful culture in your organization, but it requires taking them seriously. It also requires downloading resources. But let me just tell you, and these are free, this is all free stuff, but let me tell you, it's not easy. Organizational culture isn't a light switch. We don't fix it with a silver bullet consultant or a silver bullet app or a silver bullet thing. It takes time, there will be blood, it's not easy, but no matter where you are, you've never had more, I believe, permission and power to reshape the culture that you're in, whether it's a micro start or it's a macro start. Lean in and make a difference. Thank you.